alien women need a mate, and they just chose this human as their breeding bull.
Jack Carter woke up to the sound of roaring voices. His head throbbed, and his vision blurred as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. Instead of his tiny apartment on Earth, he found himself standing in the center of a massive golden-lit arena. Thousands of alien spectators, clad in shimmering silver armor, filled the towering stands, cheering wildly. His stomach tightened. Where the hell am I? A deep, commanding voice cut through the noise. Human, you stand before the proud warriors of the Terran Dominion. Jack turned toward the source. A tall, striking alien woman stood at the other end of the arena. She had violet skin, long midnight blue hair, and piercing golden eyes that seemed to see straight through him. She wore intricately designed battle armor, a sharp contrast to Jack's faded jeans and tattered t-shirt. She stepped forward with the confidence of a queen. The crowd fell silent. "I am Commander Vekara Zran," she declared. "By decree of the Grand Council, you have been chosen as my mate." Jack blinked, then blinked again. "Wait, what's it?" His voice came out hoarse. I think there's been a mistake." Vekara tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "There is no mistake." Jack took a slow step back, panic rising in his chest. Okay, let's start over. My name is Jack Carter. I fix things. Engines, pipes, machines, not intergalactic marriages." Vekara's lips curled into something between amusement and impatience. "Your protests are irrelevant. The trials of bonding begin now." Jack barely had time to process her words before a massive four-armed warrior stomped into the arena. The alien stood at least 7 feet tall, covered in dark blue scales, with razor-sharp tusks protruding from his jaw. He cracked his knuckles, each one sounding like a gunshot. Jack's stomach dropped. "Oh, come on." Vekara's voice echoed through the arena. "To claim your place as my mate, you must prove your worth." She gestured to the hulking warrior. "Defeat Karok, the unyielding, or surrender." Jack raised a hand. "Yeah, quick question. Can I say none of the above?" The crowd roared with laughter. Karok did not. With a grunt, the brute charged, moving faster than anything that size had a right to. Jack dodged by instinct, barely avoiding a fist the size of his head. Dust exploded around him as the punch cratered the ground. Jack stumbled, heart pounding. He needed a plan. Fast. "I can't outfight him, but maybe I can outthink him." As Karok lunged again, Jack sidestepped at the last second, grabbing a handful of loose sand from the arena floor. With a desperate throw, the dust hit Karok's 4 eyes dead on. The warrior let out a furious roar, momentarily blinded. The crowd gasped. Jack didn't hesitate. He ducked low, kicked Karok's leg out from under him, and sent the massive alien toppling face-first into the dirt. Silence. Then, thunderous cheers erupted from the stands. Jack, panting, looked up at Vekara. "That good enough for you?" She studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. "Clever." Her golden eyes gleamed. "Perhaps you are not as weak as you appear." Jack groaned. "Fantastic. Now, how do I get out of here?" Vekara's smirk widened. "You don't." Jack Carter sat cross-legged on a cushioned bench inside a massive high-tech chamber. The walls shimmered with golden energy lines, and hovering drones floated past, scanning everything with glowing blue lenses. The air smelled faintly of metal and exotic spices. Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "Okay, let's go over this again. I was minding my business on Earth, eating a perfectly good burger, and then, bam! I wake up in an alien arena, fighting a guy with more arms than should be legal." He exhaled sharply. "And now, I'm apparently married." Across from him, Commander Vekara Zran stood tall, arms crossed over her armored chest. Her golden eyes gleamed with amusement, though her expression remained unreadable. "You misunderstand," she said coolly. "We are not yet bonded. You have only passed the first trial." Jack groaned. "Of course, there are more trials." Vekara ignored his frustration. She stepped forward, her midnight blue hair swaying slightly. "Among the Exerthari, marriage is not simply declared, it is earned." Jack frowned. "Earned? How?" Vekara lifted her chin. through battle, service, and unwavering loyalty. Jack blinked, then he laughed. Not a chuckle, a full-on, exhausted laugh. Vekara narrowed her eyes. You find this amusing? Jack shook his head, still grinning. Oh, so amusing. See, where I come from, marriage is about trust, communication, and I don't know, actually liking each other. He gestured vaguely, not forcing a guy into an alien fight club to prove his love. Vekara tilted her head. You imply that combat is not a foundation for a strong bond. Jack leaned forward. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. She studied him for a long moment, then smirked. Fascinating. Jack threw up his hands. Why do I feel like you're not taking me seriously? Before Vekara could answer, the door behind her slid open with a soft hiss. A tall, silver-skinned alien with sleek braided hair stepped inside. She wore flowing red robes, and a sharp, knowing gaze settled on Jack. This is High Priestess Sivana, Vekara introduced. She oversees all formal unions within the Dominion. Jack sighed. Great, more people who think I'm supposed to be okay with this. Sivana raised a delicate brow. You are reluctant. Jack scoffed. Oh, you think? Sivana turned to Vekara. Commander, have you explained the full nature of your bond? Vekara hesitated. Not yet. Jack narrowed his eyes. Oh, fantastic. There's more. Sivana nodded. Your union is not just a personal matter. It is a political alliance. Jack blinked. Wait. What? Vekara sighed, folding her arms. That Exartheri Dominion is at a crossroads. Many believe our warrior ways are outdated. Others refuse to accept change. By taking a human mate, I prove that strength is not limited to bloodline or combat alone. Jack rubbed his face. Let me get this straight. You picked me, random guy from Earth, as some kind of symbol. Vekara's gaze was steady. Yes. Jack groaned. I knew my luck was bad, but this is next-level cursed. Sivana watched him thoughtfully. Despite your complaints, you passed the first trial with intelligence, not brute strength. That alone speaks of your worth. Jack leaned back, arms crossed. And if I refuse? Vekara's smirk returned. Then you faced the second trial, a battle of wits against the Dominion's greatest tacticians. Jack paused, then sighed. Of course I do. Jack Carter sat stiffly in a massive silver-plated chamber that looked like a mix between a courtroom and a war council. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, and holographic maps flickered in the air, showing battle formations and political territories he didn't understand. Across from him, Vekara Zran, the towering violet-skinned warrior commander, sat with perfect confidence. Her golden eyes studied him with quiet amusement, as if she were enjoying his discomfort. Jack exhaled sharply and dragged a hand through his hair. All right, let's just say I go along with this crazy marriage trial thing. What exactly do I have to do? Vekara smirked. You must prove your worth in a battle of tactics and strategy. Jack perked up. Oh, thank God. A trial that doesn't involve getting punched in the face. Vekara raised an eyebrow. You may still get punched. That depends on your opponent's temperament. Jack groaned. Of course it does. A sharp, clipped voice cut through their conversation. The trial begins now. Jack turned to see a thin, hawk-eyed alien with pale green skin and long, flowing robes. He looked like he hadn't smiled a day in his life. This is Strategist Vaylor, the Dominion's chief tactician, Vekara said. Vaylor didn't even acknowledge Jack. Instead, he tapped a control panel, and a holographic battlefield appeared between them. Jack's eyes widened. Wait, is this a war game? Vaylor finally looked at him, unimpressed. You will command an army. I will command an army. Your objective, defeat me. Jack rubbed his hands together. Now this I can do. He'd spent years playing strategy games, fixing problems, and thinking outside the box. If they expected him to fight like a Exartheri warrior, he'd lose. But if this was about outsmarting someone, they were in his territory now. The trial begins. The battlefield simulation flickered to life. Jack and Vaylor both had troops, warships, and resources, represented by glowing figures on the map. Vaylor moved first, He divided his forces into perfect formations, each one advancing with precise military discipline. Jack frowned. Way too predictable. Instead of mirroring the formation, Jack did something different. He spread his forces out unevenly, creating gaps that looked like weaknesses. Vekara leaned forward, intrigued. Why are you leaving your flank open? Jack smirked. Because Vaylor's too smart to ignore a weakness. As expected, Vaylor attacked the opening immediately. Jack's grin widened. Gotcha. The moment Vaylor's fleet moved in, Jack sprung his trap, his weak side suddenly reinforced with cloaked ships he'd hidden earlier. The simulated battlefield exploded with movement. Vaylor's forces, thinking they had an easy win, were suddenly surrounded and crushed. A sharp silence filled the chamber. Jack leaned back and folded his arms. So, do I get a trophy, or just the honor of not dying today? Vekara burst out laughing, a rare, genuine laugh. Vaylor, scowling, deactivated the simulation. He cheated. Jack raised an eyebrow. I won. Vekara stood, golden eyes flashing with approval. Jack Carter, you have passed the second trial. Jack sighed in relief, until she added, the third trial begins at dawn. Jack groaned. Oh, come on. Jack Carter sat in the middle of an enormous feasting hall, surrounded by towering Xerthari warriors. Long golden tables stretched from wall to wall, filled with strange, steaming dishes and glowing blue drinks that smelled vaguely of citrus and danger. He wasn't sure if he was at a celebration or an execution. Across from him, Vekara Zran, his supposed future mate, sat with the grace of a queen. Her violet skin shimmered under the dim lighting, and her golden eyes gleamed with amusement as she watched him poke at his food with suspicion. Jack sighed, resting his elbows on the table. All right, what's this trial called? Let me guess. Trial of eating questionable food. Vekara smirked. No, you faced the trial of unity. Jack frowned. That sounds less painful than the last two. Vekara leaned forward. It is a ceremonial dance performed by bonded pairs before the High Council. It symbolizes harmony and trust. Jack froze. Did you just say dance? Vekara's smirk widened. Yes. Jack put his hands up. Nope, absolutely not. I can fight, I can strategize, but dancing, not happening. Vekara tilted her head. Are you saying humans do not use dance for courtship? Jack scratched his neck. We do, but it's more like slow swaying, or, drunk wedding dances where someone's uncle falls over a table. Vekara chuckled. This dance is sacred. It requires perfect coordination, balance, and strength. Jack exhaled. Great, so basically, if I trip over my own feet, I fail the trial. Vekara's expression turned deadly serious. If you fail, it would be seen as a rejection of the bond. Jack blinked. Wait, so I mess up, and suddenly I've insulted an entire alien civilization. Vekara nodded. Jack groaned. Why is everything on this planet so dramatic? The dance of unity. The music started. Jack stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by hundreds of watching warriors. His heart pounded as Vekara stepped toward him, her movements precise and fluid. She lifted her hands. Follow my lead. Jack hesitated. You realize I have the coordination of a wounded penguin, right? Vekara smirked. Then I suggest you focus. The dance began. Vekara moved with flawless grace, spinning and weaving around him like a warrior in combat. Jack did his best not to trip and die. Each step was a challenge. He had to match her pace, mirror her movements, and trust his instincts. And then, something strange happened. As they moved together, Jack stopped overthinking. His body adjusted to the rhythm. He started anticipating Vekara's movements, reacting instead of resisting. For the first time since arriving, he felt in sync. A newfound respect. As the final beat echoed, Vekara and Jack came to a stop, perfectly aligned. Silence filled the hall. Then, thunderous applause. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He turned to Vekara. Did I just pass? Vekara's golden eyes gleamed with something new. Respect. Yes, Jack Carter. You passed. Jack grinned, and I didn't even fall on my face. Vekara smirked. A promising start. Jack sighed. So, what's next? Vekara's smirk deepened. The final trial. Jack groaned. Of course it is. Jack Carter stood at the edge of a towering cliff, that exerthery capital stretching far below him. The sky was a deep shade of violet, two suns casting long shadows across the ancient stone platform where he now stood. A fierce wind howled around him, tugging at his shirt as he eyed the massive obstacle course ahead. At this point, he should have known better than to expect anything easy. Vekara Zran, his very serious, very warrior-like potential bride, stood beside him, arms crossed. Her midnight blue hair flowed in the wind, and her golden eyes gleamed with quiet challenge. Jack exhaled. All right, I'll bite. What's this one called? Vekara smirked. The Trial of Devotion. Jack frowned. See, that sounds nice. Like something involving, I don't know, writing a poem. Maybe a heartfelt speech. Vekara pointed toward the death trap ahead. It is a test of endurance, intelligence, and trust. You must navigate the path of the eternal bond, a sacred challenge that no outsider has ever attempted. Jack scanned the course again, spinning platforms, collapsing bridges, fire-spewing vents, and was that a giant robotic beast waiting at the end? Jack pinched the bridge of his nose. You know, in my culture, devotion is proved with flowers and breakfast in bed. Vekara smirked. Here, devotion is proved through action. Jack sighed. Of course it is. The trial begins. The moment Jack stepped onto the first platform, it lurched beneath his feet. He barely had time to react before it flipped over, forcing him to leap to the next. He landed hard, rolled, and sprang up just as flaming spears shot up from the ground. Jack dodged, heart hammering. Okay, so we're just ignoring basic safety laws, huh? Vekara stood calmly at the starting line, watching him. Focus. Jack groaned, but kept moving. The next section was a series of crumbling stone bridges. Each step triggered a collapse, forcing him to sprint faster than he'd ever sprinted before. If I survive this, I am never running again. He reached the midpoint, only to come face to face with a towering mechanical guardian. The four-armed beast let out a deafening roar, its metal claws gleaming in the sunlight. Jack sighed. Of course, because running for my life wasn't stressful enough. The beast lunged. Jack ducked, rolled, and barely avoided getting swiped off the platform. His mind raced. He couldn't outfight this thing, not like a warrior. But he could outthink it. As the beast swung again, Jack dropped low and grabbed a loose metal rod from the ground. He jammed it into the creature's exposed gears, and with a loud grind, the beast froze. Jack grinned. Yeah, take that, you oversized tin can. The final stretch was ahead, a long, narrow beam leading to the finish. Easy, right? Except the beam was retracting. Jack sprinted. With one last desperate leap, he launched himself off the beam, arms flailing, before crashing onto the final platform. Silence. Then, cheers erupted from the crowd of warriors watching below. Jack rolled onto his back, panting. Tell me that counts. Vekara stepped forward, standing over him. Her golden eyes held something new, admiration. She extended a hand. You have proven yourself, Jack Carter. Jack groaned, taking her hand. Please tell me this means I get a nap. Vekara smirked. It means you are now my mate. Jack froze. Wait, what? Jack Carter sat in the middle of a grand ceremonial hall, still catching his breath from the life-threatening obstacle course he had just survived. The air smelled of sweet incense and burning torches, and the exerthery warriors surrounding him were cheering and pounding their fists against their armored chests. Vekara Zran, the tall, violet-skinned warrior woman who had just declared him her mate, stood beside him with a proud expression. Her golden eyes gleamed, and her midnight blue hair cascaded over her armored shoulders. Jack, however, was still processing. He cleared his throat. Can we just back up for a second? When you said I was your mate, you meant, like, officially? Vekara nodded, as if it were obvious. Yes, you completed the trials of union. By our laws, you are now bound to me. Jack blinked. So let me get this straight. I survived a near-death battle, an alien war strategy game, a sacred dance, and an obstacle course from hell, and that means I'm married. Vekara tilted her head. You sound displeased. Jack rubbed his face. No, I mean, yes. I don't know. Earth doesn't work like this. A massive warrior stepped forward. His crimson battle armor gleamed under the torchlight, and his silver horns curved backward like a crown. This was High Warlord Torgeth, Vekara's father, and the most intimidating being Jack had ever met. Torgeth narrowed his piercing golden eyes at Jack. You wish to refuse the bond. Jack glanced around. The entire room went silent. Every single Exarthary warrior was staring at him. Their hands were already resting on their weapons. Jack let out a nervous laugh. Oh, I wouldn't say refuse exactly. Torgeth's deep voice rumbled. Then you accept. Jack's heart pounded. He glanced at Vekara. She looked at him expectantly, as if curious about his answer. Her warrior culture was different, sure, but she had never treated him badly. She had protected him, respected his intelligence, and even laughed at his jokes. And if he was being honest, she was fierce, beautiful, and terrifyingly competent. Jack sighed. Look, I didn't come here expecting to get space married, but I did win fair and square. Torgeth's eyes narrowed. So you will claim her. Jack frowned. Whoa, let's calm down with the phrasing there, big guy. He exhaled. I'll stay. I'll try to make this work. But, he turned to Vekara. I need you to understand something. Vekara crossed her arms. Speak. Jack took a breath. Where I come from, marriage is a choice. It's not just about proving your strength. It's about trust. It's about wanting to be together. He met her golden gaze. So if we're doing this, I need to know. Do you actually want me as your mate, or was this just a test to see if I could survive? Silence filled the hall. For the first time, Vekara hesitated. Jack held his breath. Then, she stepped closer, not as a warrior, but as a person. She studied him, then nodded. I have fought many battles, but none have surprised me as much as you. A rare, small smile crossed her lips. Yes, Jack Carter, I'd want you as my mate. Jack let out a slow breath. Well, when you put it like that, he grinned. Guess that means we're in this together. The room erupted into victorious cheers. Torgeth clapped a heavy hand on Jack's shoulder, nearly knocking him over, then let the bonding feast begin. Jack groaned. Oh, come on. Another challenge. Jack Carter sat at the center of a massive banquet hall, surrounded by cheering Exarthary warriors. The walls were lined with towering golden banners, and long tables overflowed with strange alien foods, glowing drinks, and was that a roasted six-legged beast. Jack exhaled, rubbing his temples. He had survived a battle simulation, a sacred dance, an obstacle course, and somehow, in the middle of all that, ended up married to an alien warrior princess. Now, he had to survive the bonding feast. Vekara Sran sat beside him, calm and composed as she sipped from a goblet of deep blue liquid. Her golden eyes gleamed with quiet amusement as she watched Jack inspect the plate in front of him. Jack poked a piece of purple meat with his fork. It jiggled. Meat shouldn't jiggle. He sighed. Okay, so before I take a bite of this, I just need to ask, am I going to die? Vekara tilted her head. It is an honor to partake in the bonding feast. That's not a no. Vekara smirked. It is safe, mostly. Jack dropped his fork. Mostly. Torgeth, the High Warlord, let out a booming laugh from across the table. His crimson armor gleamed, and his massive silver horns cast long shadows against the torchlight. The human is cautious, a wise trait for one so fragile. Jack frowned. Hey, I may be fragile compared to you, but on my planet, I'm actually in decent shape. Vekara chuckled. You are not wrong. You have proven yourself stronger than expected. Jack smirked. Careful, Vekara. That almost sounded like a compliment. Before Vekara could reply, a warrior slammed a mug down in front of Jack. The deep red liquid inside bubbled ominously. Jack squinted. What is this? Vekara's expression turned deadly serious. It is the bloodfire toast, a sacred drink. All bonded pairs must share it. Jack narrowed his eyes. Let me guess, it's insanely strong. Torgath grinned. It is brewed from the essence of the Aurquali fruit, known for its intensity. Jack had a bad feeling. Define intensity. Vekara picked up the mug. One sip will bring clarity. Jack rubbed his face. See, when people start talking in mystical riddles, I get nervous. Still, the entire hall was watching him. Warriors pounded their fists on the table, chanting his name. Jack sighed. Oh, fine. He grabbed the mug and took a sip. Immediate regret. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, it felt like pure fire exploded in his skull. His vision blurred. His skin tingled. Every nerve in his body lit up like a supernova. Jack slammed the mug down. Whoa, wait it. Wait is hey pping? Vekara took her sip with zero reaction. She set the mug down and nodded approvingly. Jack gasped. How are you so calm? Vekara smirked. It is only strong for the uninitiated. Jack gripped the table. I think I just saw through time. Torgath let out another booming laugh. The human survives. A worthy mate indeed. Jack groaned. I need water, and possibly a medic. Vekara leaned in. Her golden eyes gleamed with amusement. You handled it well, Jack Carter. Jack exhaled. If I survive this whole space marriage thing, I'm demanding breakfast in bed for life. Vekara chuckled. We shall see. Jack sighed. That's not a no. The feast continued, but Jack had a feeling his real challenges were just beginning.